In Panama, Rio India residents announced rallies against the construction of a dam in the Panama Canal basin. Hundreds of retirees in Paraguay reject the attempt to privatize the country's loan fund. And the United States government has announced that it will expand its visa restriction policy to those associated with the international medical cooperation agreements with Cuba. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Panama, Rio Indio residents and several farmer national movements announced rallies against the construction of a dam in the Panama Canal basin. Digna Benitez, farmer coordinator for Life, expressed that the authority of the Panama Canal disseminated fake news about the alleged acceptance of this project. She denounced the questionable and intimidating censuses that do not reflect the will of the people. Benitez recalled that since 1999, farmers have been waging a struggle in defense of their territory against the government program that includes the eviction of productive lands that they have occupied for several generations. That is the case of Rio Indio, vital for the agricultural and livestock activities of over 12,000 people. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said Wednesday she doesn't rule out a meeting with her U.S. counterpart Donald Trump to discuss the tariffs that Washington is threatening to implement. The statement was issued during Sheinbaum's regular morning press conference, where she reaffirmed that despite the possible imposition of U.S. tariffs, Mexico continues to be an attractive nation to invest in. The head of state also informed that there is a wide communication between the trade officials of both countries to look for bilateral agreements on all controversial issues. Sheinbaum's statement comes ahead of the tariff post deadline scheduled for March 4th.
If it's necessary, we would look for it. There has been meetings between the Secretaries of Treasury of both nations. That is to say, there has been coordination and communication with Secretary Ebrard. He is also in communication with the Secretary of Commerce. So this week the meetings were intensified, and we will always look for an agreement within the framework of respect for our sovereignty and our Constitution.
On the other hand, the Mexican head of state announced the likelihood of bringing forward the revision of the deal between her country, the United States, and Canada.
Remember also that we have ahead the revision of the treaty. That was agreed by the United States Congress and our legislative power. So the treaty has become a law. And there is a revision scheduled for 2026. And it is very likely that the whole revision will be brought forward.
Hundreds of retirees in Paraguay reject the attempt to privatize the country's loan fund. On Wednesday, groups of retirees protested against the loan system of the pension fund of the Social Security Institute, questioning its conditions and irregularities. They also condemned the intention of Santiago Peña's government to hand over the administration of the loans of more than 76,000 retirees to the banks. Moreover, they demanded greater transparency and better benefits to satisfy their needs.
They are trying to privatize our loan fund. The only thing we retirees have left over is to withdraw our money for our medicine, to subsist. Because no one can touch this money. I don't understand why they don't understand this. So, I declare it a government that is a thief, because how are they going to touch the private money that is ours? They can't just pay these 3 councillors that they are saying they represent, who weren't elected by us. We, as retirees, have the right to elect retirees who represent us and who know our needs.
The Chilean government confirmed that 3 patients depending on electrical devices died during the national power outage. The president of the Luz para Ellos Foundation criticized the electric companies for lack of preventive measures. Authorities informed that one of the victims passed away due to the lack of a backup generator. Meanwhile, the Interior Minister, Carolina Toja, added 2 other deaths, noting that the patients' demise will be analyzed thoroughly. In that context, the Viña del Mar International Song Festival called off its activities as a result of Chile's power outage nationwide. After having cancelled the production of the festival, reassigned its activities for next Saturday, March 1st, 2025. On a press release, the event's organizers stated that the confirmed artists will be present on the new date, keeping up with the same agenda. The measure was pursued around 7 p.m. local time, 4 hours following the national power outage. Carnivals officially start on Thursday in the Brazilian city of Recife, but thousands of people are already celebrating the event on the streets. Our correspondent Brian Mir with the details.
I'm in Recife on the banks of the Capibaribe River. Behind me, the famous statue of the Rooster of Dawn, a carnival tradition in this northeastern Brazilian city that goes back to 1978, a period when the dictatorship was beginning to fall and the military loosened their regulations on street carnivals. That was the year that the world's largest carnival block party was founded, the Galo da Madrugada, the Rooster of Dawn. Every Saturday of Carnival since 1994, this party has been registered as the world's largest carnival block, with a record crowd appearing there about 10 years ago of 2.2 million people, dancing behind 30 sound trucks with 30 different bands on them. The rooster itself is a statue that's put up on a main avenue in downtown Recife to commemorate the Carnival Bloco. This year it's 32 meters high, and using the theme of climate change adaptation, it was made from over 20,000 plastic soft drink bottles that were donated by fans of the Galo. So it's the last night before Carnival. As you can see, the crowd is enthusiastic. The streets are packed with people, entire families coming out, sometimes with small children who just don't feel comfortable going to such a big party as the Galo Bloco itself during Carnival. Take their kids to see the statue. It's become part of Recife's tradition. It's just been put up. They've had to reroute 120 city bus lines to accommodate the Galo da Madrugada, which is now officially standing up in the city of Recife the day before Carnival starts.
And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The United States government has announced that it will expand its visa restriction policy to those associated with the International Medical Cooperation Agreement with Cuba. The measure was announced by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and represents the 7th aggression against the Caribbean nation in a month. The decision would restrict the granting of visas to Cuban and third country government officials whom Washington accuses of accomplices, as well as to persons responsible for the island's international health program. Cuban Minister of Foreign Affairs Bruno Rodriguez accused Rubio of putting his personal agenda ahead of the interest of his government and said the decision was based on falsehoods and coercion aimed at benefiting special interest groups for whom Rubio does warranty the waste of U.S. taxpayers' funds. Cuba denounces a new affront to its sovereignty by the U.S. government, which is keeping more than 30,000 migrants in Guantanamo's illegal naval base. Cuban citizens gathered on Wednesday at the Mariana Grajales Square in the province of Guantánamo to condemn the imperialist aggressions of the United States. Furthermore, they demanded that the U.S. government return the territory, which has been illegally occupied for more than 122 years, and blamed Washington for promoting human rights violations in the enclave. In addition, demonstrators denounced the blockade the U.S. has maintained on the Caribbean island for more than 60 years and rejected the re-inclusion of Cuba in the list of countries sponsoring terrorism.
Our brave people, in the name of Cuba, denounce, in this trench of honor, the interference policy of the government of the United States, the cruel economic and financial blockade against our country, and the illegal naval base at Guantánamo, a territory that belongs to us. Our destiny is irrevocable. The homeland is happiness and heaven for all, because homeland is humanity, and we will always be anti-imperialist.
Gentlemen imperialists, the people of Guantánamo, the first anti-imperialist trench of Cuba, will never surrender. We will continue to depend on this land and this flag of the Lone Star that has never been mercenary. Stop terrorism. Long live peace. Ever honor to victory.
In the United States, a child who had not been vaccinated against measles died from the disease in rural West Texas, becoming the first death in the country from the highly contagious respiratory disease since 2015. The fatal case occurs while the Trump administration's health secretary, Robert Kennedy, represents radical skeptical stances towards immunizations. The child had been hospitalized and died Tuesday night amid the largest outbreak of the disease in Texas in nearly 30 years. According to health authorities, most of the more than 130 cases reported so far are children, 18 of whom have been hospitalized. The epicenter of the outbreak is in the Texan county of Gaines, home of an important Mennonite population, a Christian sect with a history of reluctance to vaccines. In Qatar, Foreign Minister of Russia Sergei Lavrov announced Russian diplomats will hold a meeting with their U.S. counterparts on Thursday in Istanbul to sort out issues concerning their embassies. Lavrov specified the encounter is aimed at normalizing bilateral relations, grounded in the fact that both nations had expelled their embassy personnel from the other during the Biden administration. As the Kremlin and Washington have been making negotiations regarding the conflict in Ukraine, tensions have started to diffuse between them.
Our diplomats, high-level experts, will meet with U.S. colleagues and consider systemic problems that have accumulated as a result of the illegal activities of the previous administration in creating artificial obstacles to the activities of the Russian embassy in the U.S. Naturally, we responded by creating uncomfortable conditions for the work of the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. Such a meeting will take place tomorrow in Istanbul. I think that its results will show how quickly and effectively we can move forward.
U.S. President Donald Trump confirms he will receive his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington on Friday as negotiations are underway on a deal to give the United States access to Ukrainian mineral resources.
Doing very well. Russia, Ukraine. President Zelensky is going to be coming on Friday. That's now confirmed, and we're going to be signing an agreement which will be a very big agreement.
Russian Foreign Ministry rejected the European Union's intentions to deploy troops in Ukraine and accused its leaders of trying to rearm this Slavic country. The head of Russian diplomacy, Sergei Lavrov, reiterated that Russia does not block talks on the settlement of the Ukrainian conflict and recalled that it is mainly the Ukrainian leadership under pressure from Europe that refuses to negotiate. Lavrov also drew attention to the statements of the European politicians who said that the conflict in Ukraine should be solved militarily and not at the negotiating table. The Russian top diplomat emphasized that the possibility to engage in negotiations over the conflict in Ukraine will never disappear from his government's agenda. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. This Wednesday, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa opened the G20 Summit of Finance and Economic Ministers in Cape Town. Multilateralism is once again the common factor in the opening speeches. Regarding that the group was founded on the principles of cooperation, the President called on the developed and emerging powers that make up this alliance to deepen multilateral cooperation. He referred to the escalation of tensions and the unprecedented global uncertainty to underline the importance of working together. The agenda of this conclave focuses on the reform of the financial architecture without neglecting to analyze the tariff threats from the United States, a country that is not attending this meeting.
It is vital to ensuring that the rights and interests of the vulnerable are not trampled beneath the ambitions of the powerful. Multilateral cooperation is our only hope of overcoming unprecedented challenges, including slow and uneven growth, rising debt burdens and levels,
In Gaza, the Medical Aid Directorate warned of the aftermath of the cold wave and the growing shortage of basic supplies. Health authorities detailed that around 35,000 Gazan families have been facing all kinds of shortages of basic services due to over 158 months of Israeli genocide against the Gaza Strip. Furthermore, they estimated that over 60,000 mobile homes and 200,000 tents are required to assist the forcibly displaced for safeguarding them against the effects of extreme weather events. In this context, the United Nations indicated that close to $53 billion are needed to rebuild Gaza. Israeli forces killed 4 civilians in an airstrike in southern Lebanon in yet another violation of the ceasefire agreement. The Lebanese authorities reported that at least 2 people were wounded in the bombing and were taken to nearby medical centers. They also denounced the siege imposed by the troops of the Tel Aviv regime on at least 5 key points in the south of the country. And the violation of the ceasefire agreement signed by Israel with the Islamic resistance movement Hezbollah on November 27, 2024. The Egyptian government has rejected an Israeli proposal to take over Gaza for 80 years in exchange for Israel canceling its foreign debt. The proposal was made at a forum in the United States where the Israeli leader Yair Lapid suggested that Egypt administer Gaza for 8 or possibly 15 years. The Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi rejected this condition, affirming that Egypt would cancel its own debts and condemning the expulsion of the Palestinians from their land. The Egyptian leader called for the ceasefire to be maintained, reiterating his support for Palestine and his commitment to the reconstruction of Gaza. Gaza, as the idea of U.S. control violates international laws and norms. In Sudan, a military plane crashed into Omdurman city, bringing about around 46 deaths and 12 other injured. The accident occurred in the Al Tawara town in the Karari district, where the aircraft hit several residential buildings due to a technical failure. The military plane, which took off from the Wadi Saina base in Khartoum, was bound for the Port Sudan city, the seat of the current government, and the army command. Civilians and soldiers, including high-ranking military commanders, were among the fatal casualties. And with this information, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.